Hello, my name is Dr. Reed Tuckson, the co-founder of the Black Coalition Against COVID. And on behalf of my colleagues at the Black Coalition, as well as the University of Maryland Center for Health Equity and Shea Moisture, the beauty and personal care brand, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this town hall entitled The Colors of COVID, From Vaccine Hesitancy to Vaccine Confidence. We understand that one by one in the chair is the motto of many lifelong Black and brown barbers and stylists. And that special relationship is one of the cornerstones of Black and brown culture, a relationship that extends well beyond the latest hairstyle to engage the very lifeblood of our communities. As we will hear tonight, we are in a very delicate stage in the struggle to end this pandemic and preserve Black and brown lives. We know that many of you tuning in tonight have questions and are seeking credible information from reliable sources with which to make key decisions about things like mask wearing and being vaccinated, as well as other COVID-related challenges. We respect your intelligence and we embrace your questions. And also, we approach this with love and empathy and compassion for all of our people who suffer. That's why tonight's town hall will be mainly conversational, with much of it guided by your questions. In addition to our conversation tonight, at the end of the show, we're going to announce a special initiative that President Biden highlighted today in his press conference called Shots at the Shop. Tongue twister. This initiative will be very important in providing substantial financial incentives that are being offered by our friends at Shea Moisture in partnership with the University of Maryland Center for Health Equity. And so we really do hope that you will stay tuned, because you will definitely want to know about that special initiative and the economic rewards that are associated with this. By the way, if you don't get to stay to the end of the show, you'll definitely then want to attend the rebroadcast, which will be rebroadcast tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time at facebook.com/blackdoctor.org. We'll put that along the bottom of the screen, facebook.com/blackdoctor.org. I want to thank our sponsors for this evening's conversation. My colleagues at the Black Coalition Against COVID, which include the 4 historically Black medical schools, Howard, Meharry, Morehouse, and Charles Drew, the National Medical Association, the National Black Nurses Association, the National Urban League, and blackdoctor.org. Also, our sponsors are the Made to Save initiative from the Department of Health and Human Services, the University of Maryland Center for Health Equity, and Shea Moisture, as well as the noted barber company and supply company, Barbershop. Before we launch into the conversation, we want to set the stage by spending just a few minutes of background on where we are at this stage of the pandemic. And there are no better people to do this than my colleagues and friends, Dr. Cameron Webb, the Senior Policy Advisor for COVID-19 Equity at the White House, and Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith, Senior Advisor to the White House COVID-19 Response Team. Welcome, Drs. Webb and Dr. Smith.
Hello, hello.
Hello, great to be here.
Glad that you both could join us. Let me start by asking you all to describe the current stage of this pandemic. Where are we? Are we anywhere near the end? And when will this be over?
It's the magic question. I think we all have been asking, really since this began. I think the best way that I would describe where we are is that we're making considerable progress. And even though in some communities things are starting to look more and more like they're getting back to normal, the fact of the matter is we still have a lot of folks left to get vaccinated. And the people at the greatest risk are the folks who haven't had a chance to get that immunity quite yet. So yes, we've had over 160 million folks vaccinated, but again, we still have a large percentage left to go. And a lot of times you hear people describe the current state of the pandemic in terms of vaccinations, and that's not a bait and switch. It's really because we recognize that vaccines are one of the best ways for us to prevent deaths from this pandemic, where we've already seen about 600,000. It's the best way to prevent hospitalizations and also even cases. And so it is a big part of the equation of us getting back to normal. But the truth of the matter is we still have a ways to go. It's almost like we're at the 10-yard line. We just don't want to spike the football before we get in the end zone.
That's a great way to describe it. Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith, what worries you the most about this stage in the pandemic, especially when you think about its impact on Black and brown people?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. So, couldn't agree with Dr. Webb more. And there are sort of critical milestones you have to consider. It's true, since the beginning of the pandemic, this is the first time we're seeing cases down. Overall, we are seeing deaths down. There's a lot of reasons to hold hope and optimism right now. But there are also, I think, kind of just moments for us to pause and talk about the fact that we're seeing uneven uptake of the vaccine and vaccination. The president has set this goal for us: 70% of people over the age of 18 in our country vaccinated by the 4th of July. We see 12 states that have already met this goal. When we look at people who are 40 and over, 73% of them in the country are vaccinated. But we know that the people who are unvaccinated, even younger people, right, are still at risk for serious illness, at risk for hospitalization, at risk for death. I know in the hospital where I work, we're seeing younger and younger patients get affected. And the reality is that in many of our communities, the vaccination rate is still well below that 70% target. So we have a lot to do. Just grateful for this partnership, the collaborations, all, of course, that the coalition is doing, and really the key critical role for barbers and stylists to play in this next phase of vaccination.
Dr. Webb, as we think about closing this gap, and we're now at a national average of 62% or so, and we're trying to get to 70. For the Black and Brown community, that's a little bit different, those numbers. And I'm wondering what that means for people in our community, especially those who are frontline essential workers who are walking around and seeing so many people without masks. And can you really trust that those people are themselves not carrying that virus?
That's one of the big challenges. But I think what I always remind folks is you do have the ability to protect yourself and also encourage your family to be protected. And so, we're looking at the numbers, just again, strictly going by the numbers. We've got about 8.5 million Black individuals here in the United States who've received at least one dose of this vaccine. So that's a considerable number. But again, we still have a ways left to go. But I want to also emphasize the importance of that second dose. That second dose is critical because that's what gives you those neutralizing antibodies. That's what really makes sure that your immune system is ready just in case the virus comes your way, and especially in protecting you against the variants. And we've got about 7 million folks who've been fully vaccinated. 7 million Black individuals in this country who've been fully vaccinated. So again, a lot of progress left to be made. But I think we can look at the fact that in communities all across this country, I always reject that notion that Black people aren't getting vaccinated. They are. We just need to keep pushing and keep pressing, because what we're coming up against is a whole, range of historical and contemporary dynamics of the impact of health systems, of societal structures that have had a really negative impact on Black communities. And so really in short order, in the midst of this response, we've had to both acknowledge that really painful past and also say that in this moment, the thing that's here to help you is actually the vaccine. And so we have to make sure that we're listening to people, hearing people, but also showing them this is something that can really help.
Dr. Nunez-Smith, Dr. Webb used the term variants, and I wonder if you can just talk a little bit about what that's all about, and what do the variants tell us about what's going on in India and in Brazil, and what that might mean here for the United States.
Absolutely. I think it's always a reminder for us that we are fighting a global pandemic. We are so fortunate in this country, because of President Biden's leadership, that we have supply for all adults in the country. We now know that everyone who is 12 years of age and older is eligible to get vaccinated. And part of the urgency for the vaccination, we've already talked about really trying to keep ourselves well, knowing that once somebody gets COVID, you don't know how it's going to affect you. And even if you think it's a mild case, the symptoms could linger. We know people are struggling with those long COVID type symptoms. We know you should get vaccinated to protect others around you. This is a way we show love and kindness and compassion and empathy, to your point earlier, Dr. Tuckson, for those around us who might be vulnerable, unable to get vaccinated or unable to mount a full response. We have many, many reasons to get vaccinated, but we need to add this one to the list, which is our fight against the variants. Every time a virus has a chance to spread, it has a chance to mutate. And we know this is what viruses do. And they're trying to be smart and evade our systems. And some of these mutations are going to be irrelevant, but some of them are going to be of concern, of interest. potentially even diminishing the effectiveness of things like vaccines and therapies. So we know that one of the ways that you fight against the variants is by getting vaccinated and getting people vaccinated as soon as possible. Here in the US, very grateful to say that at this moment, all of the variants we see in circulation, the vaccines that we have are effective against them. So just another reason to think about and act on vaccination now.
Wow. Well, we have just another couple of minutes for this stage setting before we get to the discussion and the questions. And let me start with you, Dr. Webb. What is the one message you want to give to your brothers who are the barbers? I notice and can't help but notice that you seem to have gotten your due together today. So I wonder, what did you say to your brothers who took care of you today?
I was gonna say, this fresh fade is brought to you by a visit to the shop this morning. And while I was at the shop this morning, it comes up naturally every time. And my barber Jamal Dow here in Charlottesville, he knows that I work in the White House. He knows that I've been working on addressing this pandemic. And every time he's just like, "So how's it going? How's the vaccination effort going?" But we walked through that process of him having questions about the vaccine, to him getting vaccinated, to him encouraging folks, in his shop to get vaccinated, to ultimately 11 days ago, he hosted a vaccination event in the shop. 30 people got shots in arms at the Barber's Den here in Charlottesville. And it's because he recognized that's a huge way for him to get things back to normal, and he wanted to do his part. And so I think my message is that, it doesn't take much. What he said to me today, which I think really resonates, is he said, he's like, Cam, it's not my style to tell anybody what to do. I just want to make sure they have good information to make whatever decision they want to make. And I was like, that's about right. That's where we should be, right? We believe that if we give people the right information, they're going to make good decisions, and good decisions for themselves, their family, and their community. And I think the barbers have been in that business of giving good information for a long time, and you're a critical part of this effort moving forward.
And Dr. Nunez-Smith, what do you say to your sisters who are the stylists?
Oh, absolutely. It's the same. We love our time at the shop. We do a lot of talking, right? What I want to say is it's so important for you. You have that power. When you hear somebody say something that is myth, that is misinformation, please, we're so used to just agreeing and being very supportive in that space, but we have to be sure that we're bringing the right information. Like Dr. Webb just said, this is our big challenge right now. There's so much out there that is wrong on social media and other places. And in places like the salon, I'm hearing people in the shop talk about things like magnets and infertility and other things that we know are not true and debunked. So I say, listen, we're all going to be in solidarity together, and let's be in solidarity to make sure that we're not letting the shop be a place where misinformation spreads.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith. I know that you're going to leave, but Dr. Webb will be with us throughout the show as a source of invaluable information. So thank you both. And now it is my pleasure to, as I start to turn the program over to our other co-hosts, I want to remind everyone, you really do want to stay tuned till the end, because there is a significant financial and programmatic announcement that we're going to make that will interest, I think, many of the barbers and the stylists who are listening in tonight. But I am really pleased to introduce now Dr. Stephen Thomas, professor of the University of Maryland School of Public Health and director of the Maryland Center for Health Equity. Dr. Thomas is an old colleague of mine. We've been fighting for Black health since the 80s together, and he is the pioneer of all of us working with barbers and salons to be able to make a real difference in the health of people of color. And I'm also pleased that Omar Neal, who is also joining us, who is the host of the You Got the Power radio show, former mayor of Tuskegee, Alabama. Dr. Thomas, Mr. Neal, take it away.
Thank you very much, Reed.
Thank you.
Omar.
Hey, man, what's going on?
You know what? Amazing announcement today from the White House podium. Come on now.
Absolutely, it was, man. But we don't want to tell people right now. I just want to first, let's give Dr. Tuckson and Dr. Webb and Dr. Nunez-Smith kudos, man. They laid it out. Did they not lay it out? I mean, everything that needed to be said to set the foundation for this conversation was done.
There you go.
And so we're ready to rock and roll, to really talk to not only barbers and stylists, but also to engage the public in the issues that concern them now, recognizing that we should first seek to understand, then to be understood. And so let's first see if we can get some understanding going on. You remember it was Jerry Butler says, "Ain't understanding mellow."
and you know, in that opening, all three of them have a personal story about where they go to get their hair done.
Right.
And so I think this is so natural. But some of our friends who don't go to black barbers and stylists don't understand that sense of community. So, you know, how are we going to have a barbershop salon talk without some barbers and some stylists?
Absolutely. You can't do it.
So as we bring them up, I want you to think, Omar, and for all the guests out there, I want you to think of a word that right now characterizes how you're feeling at this moment in the pandemic.
Right.
Ellis, the director behind the scenes there, is going to open up a link, and people can go to that link. And as it goes, you can simply put in as many words, one at a time, that you think characterizes how you feel, how you're feeling. And we're going to put that word cloud up in a moment. But in the meantime, Omar, let's bring the rest of the crew to the stage.
Absolutely. I mean, to have the what we would call a star-studded crew is absolutely what we have today. I mean, to bring Mike Dynamite Brown.
Come on, Mike Brown.
You know now for Mike, you know, you're a star all over the world now. You know, all in the newspaper today and all of that. So, you know, with that smile, man, it's that smile that lights up the world, right? How you doing, my man? Everything's good. To see he has a smile frozen. That's wonderful.
Okay, there you go, Mike.
Good. And let's bring Katrina Randolph in, because you know you have barbers and then you have stylists. Now she's a stylist extraordinaire.
Indeed.
Right. I mean, you know, so when people go to her, when they come out, they light up the world.
You know, right? You know, they call her the short-haired queen.
Oh, is that what it is? But she has it. And Fred Spry, it's you know, Fred is the man too. He knows just how to do it as well. You know, these, you know, believe me, when you walk out of these shops, you feel a renewed sense of pride. You know, when people get their hair done, when they Katrina, you know that, right? When they walk out, aren't they smiling, and they look at the mirror and they say, "Wow, don't I look good?"
Hey, and Omar, Katrina, go ahead and say a few words so we can make sure your mic's good.
Hello, this is Katrina. Can you hear me?
Hear you good.
Well,
give us the name of your shop, Katrina.
Trey Shades Hair Studio in Capitol Heights, Maryland.
All right, very good. And Omar, we have a physician who works with us out in the barbershops, has been on our town halls, Dr. Tuesday Cook. Let's bring Dr. Tuesday Cook to the stage.
Absolutely.
Good evening.
Hey, Dr. Cook, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here to advocate for our people.
Absolutely. Dr. Cook has been with us for several of our town hall meetings, and she's always backed by popular demand.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, you know, we want Dr. Reed Tuckson and Dr. Webb to be part of the conversation. So Ellis, if they're there, bring them on so they can be part of this conversation, be part of the panel as we take them on a journey into the black barbershops and stylists and what we're doing to transform those places into, you ready for this, Reed? A new home for healthcare. It's a barbershop story.
Love
it's
it.
a barbershop story. So let's start with us. Ellis, if you got the cloud going, you can go ahead and show it in one of the screens, but let's go, Omar, take them around the Hollywood squares here, and let's have our panelists there give us that word that best characterizes how they're feeling right now.
Yeah, let's start with you, Dynamite Mike. What words are you feeling now? Because I know, you know, we are now in another space as people are talking about the reduction of deaths and and hospitalizations, and people are feeling a different kind of space. What are you feeling?
Mike?
I'm going to say cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
Cautiously optimistic.
I'm
Well,
here.
Katrina,
Can you hear me? Cautiously optimistic.
Okay, cautiously optimistic. Katrina, what you thinking? What's your feeling now? Right now?
A little more confident. A little more confident.
Okay. And Dr. Tuesday Cook, what's your thoughts?
No, I was going to go with Dynamite and say cautiously optimistic, but I think I'm feeling hopeful.
Dr. Tuckson, what's your thoughts?
I'm feeling love, an undying love for Black people and saving our lives. That's where I'm at tonight, saving Black life out of love.
Oh man, that's wonderful. And I'm hopeful. I feel hope, and hope is what keeps us moving forward. Even when we don't see the end, we know that the end is coming, and so I remain hopeful, knowing that we're getting this thing done in a collective way, and through it, what Dr. Tuckson says, through love. Now, Dr. T,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm just going to ask you, what was your thoughts?
I was going to make sure you weren't going to leave me out.
No, and you know what? How could I leave you out?
Now,
Right?
take a look at this cloud. This cloud comes from the audience that's out there. Look at the words in this space here. And let's see how we can weave those into this conversation. People are tired. They're also hopeful. It's an interesting combination. The bigger the word, the more people who felt that way. I think we're all exhausted. And maybe, Reed, we need a moment, if it's only a second, just to be silent and reflect on all of those that we have lost in this pandemic and all the suffering that we've gone through. Let's just take a moment. You know, scholars, people say you can't drive forward looking through the rearview mirror, and everybody wants to go forward. I think we can't forget where we've been. And I'm interested in what those lessons are that we're going to take forward. So, Omar, we're talking about barbershop salon talk. At some point, we're going to need to hear what the folk in the barbershops are saying.
Let's go to the barbershops and see what they're saying, and then we'll bring back the panel, and let's talk about what's actually said on the streets and with people who are dealing with this daily.
So Ellis, as Ellis is setting this up, we, Dr. Tuckson, we trained the barbers with some of our colleagues from the School of Journalism, and they did this beautiful series of men and women in the chair interviews. We're going to bring that conversation right here into the Hollywood Squares. Ellis, you got the floor, brother. And while Ellis, while Ellis is setting that up, Omar.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
This is my good customer Brian. I thought him for years. This is my good man Jonathan Fox. This is my customer Marcus for over 10 years. This is my customer Corey. We've been my customer for a few years. This is my good man Larry Brothers. Will you take the coronavirus shot?
Nope.
Why?
Because it killed.
How you know that?
Because it killed the I ain't gonna say millions, but thousands and thousands of people.
I mean, I want to see what the how it works, because you have so many different companies that are coming out with vaccines under different nations, under different levels of pressure in terms of let's get it out.
I'm not gonna take that. I gotta see how it affects other people. Then I'm gonna get the vaccine.
That's supposed to. I don't know if it's supposed to. Is it you throw the mask away after you take the shot, or the social distance over? I don't know anything about it.
That's a good question. I personally feel like I said, another way for them to capitalize on this entire pandemic.
I believe that my body building antibodies against something is going to protect me better than putting a virus inside my body, because that's what the flu shot is, and that's what this antivirus is supposed to be. I'm not doing it.
Okay.
if people like Dr. Fauci said, put his okay on it. But as far as the president, what he said, I don't trust him.
Well, he just took some stuff, had him back in a week.
Yeah, but we're not gonna get the stuff that he took.
Right.
Not the coronavirus.
Why not?
Because it hasn't been tested at all. And even when they came up with the polio shot, I mean, that was like 20 years.
So
I definitely won't take that.
Why not?
Because I don't feel as though it's safe. You know what I'm saying? We don't know if the medical administrators are telling us the truth about this thing. I mean, who knows what's in this thing?
Yeah. So we just take our chances how we've been doing.
I mean, with me, not with everybody else. I'm just speaking personally.
Thanks, Pop. All right. Okay. All right.
Okay, there it is, right from the chair.
Let's note that they're talking about the previous administration. This was done before this administration took office. And so they were not talking about, when they said the president, they were not talking about the current president. They were talking about the previous president. Is that right, Dynamite Mike?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we wanted to do that. Now, and the reason why we wanted to start that way and in that place was we know that that's where we have to start if we're going to get the people who are not comfortable with getting the shot. And so if we give people the proper information, then we believe they are capable of making informed decisions. So I want to go to Dr. Tuesday Cook. How much misinformation did you hear in that little clip?
I heard quite a bit, but it's none of those items were things I had not heard before. With dealing with patients, as a surgeon that takes care of a majority of Black and Latinx patients in many counties of Maryland, from Howard County to Westminster, Prince George's County, Montgomery County. I have encountered some very interesting reasons for not wanting to get the vaccine. And I don't try to discredit anyone's reason for not getting it. What I try to do is give them actual truthful information. And I'm a big proponent of not only speaking to the patient and meeting them where they are, which is why I absolutely love this. I love advocating in this way, because this is the actual embodiment of meeting the patient where they are. In the barbershop, in the salon, that's where we are. But I'm a big advocate of not only speaking to them and making sure that I speak to them at the level at which they understand, but I'm a big fan of printing things out. And so, if you go to very many websites, there are patient-friendly and people-friendly explanations of the vaccine, what to expect, et cetera. So, and I meet people from the Caribbean. I'm from the Caribbean myself. I meet people from the South. I meet people from, Northeast, and we all have our reasons. We all have the things that we say that we then spread, and people repeat it because they heard it. And so I think giving them something to read and saying, give me a call, text me if you read this and you have a question. I think that's one way that we can address the many reasons that people say they won't get it. And I think it actually has been helping. It's actually been working. People do want to get it now. But now we have to increase access.
Katrina, when you hear someone say something, you've been working with the University of Maryland. You are a health advocate and, certified in that regard. When you hear people say things that are incorrect, how do you correct them? Or do you?
Well, normally I do the same thing Dr. Cook do. I keep plenty of literature in the salon. So when they come in there, if I can't answer the question for them, a lot of times I have literature there for them to read. I may sit them to the side under the drawer and tell them, take time to read. And if you don't have understanding, just do more research. Go on CDC or make sure you're getting all of your informational facts from a healthcare system, not from social media, not from hearsay. Make sure you're taking factual information so that you will be able to make the right decisions.
Dr. Webb, we're fighting against, COVID-19, but we're also fighting against ignorance, right? And ignorance can win if we don't give people the proper information, right? And so I want to see what strategies are we using. I see where Dr. Webb went out for a second. So maybe Dr. Tuckson, maybe we can ask you this question until. Oh, well, you're back, Dr. Webb. What strategies are we using to mitigate the misinformation that's put out in so many different forums?
Yeah, it's a really important question, because the short answer is the only thing that can beat back bad information is good information from an even better messenger. And so a lot of that bad information comes from these dark corners of the internet. We don't even know where it's coming from. And a lot of it started as what we call disinformation, deliberate wrong information meant to confuse, conflate, and confound. And it became misinformation as it just got passed around by people not knowing what's true and what's false. And I think what we have to do is really lean into this idea of trusted messengers. And that, of course, has always been, healthcare providers, public health professionals within communities, sure. But recognizing that faith leaders, community-based organization leaders, and especially, again, our barbers and stylists, that's huge for people to just hear that surround sound of all their trusted messengers saying, hey, that thing about fertility, that's just false. There's no evidence supporting that, and I've heard that was debunked, and here's where I saw it, right? And really giving people a reason to believe it. We can't just do a big campaign on the airwaves and say, oh, because you saw a commercial saying that that's wrong, it's wrong. You got to really connect with people at a on the ground level, and that's what we need to do.
Dr. Tuckson, you were co-founding an organization, Blacks Against COVID. And so this vaccine, and so this virus. So you really believed in bringing people together to fight this virus, not an individual. What do you see? I want to see, what do you see in terms of the misinformation, and how can we galvanize through coalitions, right, to fight back the misinformation?
Thank you so much for that, Omar. Yeah, we did form the Black Coalition Against COVID in Washington, D.C., and it came out of my experience as the Commissioner of Public Health in the District of Columbia during the height of the AIDS epidemic. And the one thing that I learned, and that's how I met Stephen, one of the things that I learned from that experience is that you have to have a grassroots engagement if you're going to fight this kind of a major public health threat. Governments cannot do it alone. It's got to be the people. And so in DC, we organized the faith community, our labor movement, artists, musicians, the go-go musicians in DC, which is key to DC. But every community has got their own thing. We organized returning incarcerated citizens, very important people in our community. There's so many different infrastructure in our community, and we brought them together to make sure that we were giving them the right information, so that when somebody would say to us, boy, thousands of people are dying from the vaccine, we could say, that's just simply not true. There is absolutely no truth to that. What is happening is that almost 600,000 people have died from the virus, but people are not dying from the vaccine. And somehow or another, these dark corners of the web that Dr. Webb talked about is very important. It's kind of like, where does that come from? I mean, who would deliberately spread? Dr. Cook was very smart when she said, this ain't the first time I've heard that. Every time we go anywhere, we will hear that message that people are dying from the vaccine, when it is absolutely, totally untrue. But why is it spreading so much? So it's going to take the community itself, Omar, as you've sort of indicated,
right,
as we start to go forward.
What's interesting is how unequivocal you were in making the statement. You convinced me. Right?
Truth will do that, Omar.
I mean, that's how we have to be. We cannot kind of maybe, no. If you know something is wrong, say that's incorrect. And if, as Katrina said, give them information, as Dr. Cook said, give them information that they can read to corroborate what you're saying, right? Don't just leave them ignorant. And that's critically important. The other thing I think it's important for us to do, we got to have family conversations.
Like around the dinner table, yeah?
We got to, we're about to, just think about it. We're about to have 4th of July, right? People are going to be coming from all over the place. We need to have this conversation now, because if we can get the vaccine now, we can be ready for the 4th of July.
There you go.
Right? I mean, if there is ever an incentive to get vaccinated, think about this. You're going to be coming to family gatherings. And wouldn't it be wonderful that everyone that's eligible to get the vaccine has been vaccinated when they come to the family gathering, so you can go around and hug everybody again?
You know, I got to tell people when they come to the church, it's a contact sport. You're going to get hugged. So that's a big deal, not to be able to relate to one another like that.
Right.
You know, there was an article in the New York Times that said there are 4 groupings of people that now represent the last mile we have to get to. They say 8% are watchful. All of you out there, do you know people who are just waiting to see what happens next? Think about them. They need a particular communication strategy. That's different from the people, the 9% who are cost anxious. They want the vaccine but can't afford the time or the cost. Now, the vaccine is free, but people's time costs money. The 4% are system distrusters. They feel the healthcare system doesn't treat them fairly. We heard a little bit of that in the barbershop chair. And the last group, 14%, are COVID skeptics. They don't believe the threat. And as we think about that, one of the interesting things about that behavioral work was each one of those groups needs a different communication strategy. And that's where the barbers are just so expert in knowing how to speak to people where they are without disrespecting their views. You know, you can still have a conspiracy theory and still get the jab, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And that's what the goal is.
You know, what's interesting, I heard this today on my talk show, and someone said that what I want to do is let everybody else get vaccinated. And that means if they're vaccinated, I don't have to get vaccinated, and therefore I'll be okay. Right.
Okay,
and I said,
Doc.
well, you know, that's analogous to being in a pitchfork fight and you're the only one that don't have one. And you think you are right. You know, that absolutely makes no sense to me. Katrina, have you heard that before? Or Mike, have you all heard that what I'm gonna do is let everybody else get vaccinated and then I'll be safe?
I actually heard that on yesterday from a family member. She was saying, well, I'm praying that once all of you get vaccinated, then I wouldn't have to get the vaccine. She was saying that she don't think her immune system can take it. So she was saying, hopefully by the time all of you get vaccinated, then I'll be great.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting.
So I want to talk Dr. Cook and Dr. Webb to help people understand how that may not be good thinking. Dr.
Ladies
Cook, you first, and then Dr. Webb. But I want both of you all to speak to that because I heard that today.
Dr. Cook?
So, you know, I think there are a couple of things. The first one, again, the meet them where they are. I absolutely, honestly, truly believe that. I have people who are, you know, people from the second grade, people who I know who are physicians, PhDs, who have, you know, many degrees, who also have been like, well, I have to think about it. I'm not sure. And let me tell you, I actually was one of those people. You know, I can say it now. I can claim it. I was a person. I'm a Black person living in the United States of America. I have read extensively. You know, I know about the history of medicine in this country. You know, medical apartheid was real. I have patients who have gotten, you know, inadequate treatment from other doctors who are my colleagues. And so who have mistrust in the system. And I do not blame them. I do not shame them. And I know what's real and what's not real. And that's another thing I try to tell them, what's real and what's not real. If you can give me a source and we can go look at it together, then we can. But I can't blame them for their mistrust. And so what I have to do is know that they have mistrust and try to dispel some of that. Of course, we can't dispel, you know, things that have been done to us over 400 years, but what we can do is move forward. What we can do is look at the stats. Well, why is it that other people are getting the vaccine and we're not? Why is it that they have access? Why are more of them vaccinated than we are? So when we start to think along those lines, then can we say, you know, they're trying to give us something that they're not trying to give everybody else? Probably not. And so for me, with regards to being nervous about the vaccine, you know, why is it done so fast? Why should I get something? Maybe they're going to put a chip. You know, I wasn't so concerned about those things, but, you know, just from a scientific standpoint, I felt like I needed more information. And so, you know, that's what I did. I got information. I attended webinars similar to this one from blackdoctor.org. I've attended webinars from the creators of both vaccines, both Pfizer and Moderna. I read articles. I read about the coronavirus. I talked to my friends and colleagues, other physicians, immunologists. I prayed heavily. I went to all aspects of resource that I had in order to say, okay, scientifically, the data stands up and, God's got me. And so, I proceeded, and that actually made it a little bit easier to then say, okay, things are okay. And then I could be an advocate for my patients and say, well, I did it, because I wasn't pushing anybody to do anything that I wasn't going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, from the standpoint of hearing these things and wanting to combat it, that I think, again, being educated, just listening to information, going to people you trust is what really is going to help to dispel these notions.
Mike, I want to bring you, and then I'm bring you back, Dr. Webb. Mike, what's you're hearing, and does this comport with what you're hearing, what Katrina's hearing as well?
Absolutely, but I've had one a step further. Well, we've heard the chip, we've heard the stop the reproduction of the black man. We've heard all of that, but this is one that I've heard from a good friend of mine, and I thought we were on better terms than that. He said that he has another friend who's an Indian, and he says that from talking to his Indian friend told him never take a vaccine from a white man. They took our land and they sterilized our people. So I would never trust a white man with a vaccine. And I tried to explain to him that we have black brothers and sisters that's on that level producing this vaccine, and they have our best interests at hand. Where are you getting this literature from? So we're at the hell no wall. And pardon my French if that's a bad word, but we're at the wall where people are just saying no for no reason. And how do you deal with that? So for me, what I had to do was Earth, Wind, and Fire is my favorite band. So I had to become water, the missing element. And when you become water, you can fit the shape of the container of who you're talking to. And you have to meet them at that level. And then once you get down to where they are, then you can start to talk them out of their mistrust or their misinformation. But sometimes you have to just get so low that, I mean, if you're not drinking a cup of humility when you get up in the morning, this is the wrong job for you. I just have a loving, caring personality for people. I just love people. And throughout my time in my social medias, I've done comedy shows and I've thrown parties. I like to laugh. We like to have a good time. But now in my part, I want you to be healthy so that we can continue to do these things. And being vaccinated is a part of being healthy right now, over top of the other disparities that we have touched on during over the 10 years. So it's just, you just have to be humble and meet that person where they are. And I'm talking about, you get people that get really, they get loud. Like, I'm not taking the shot, Mike. I'm just not going to do it.
Hey, and that doesn't scare you, right, Mike?
It doesn't scare me. I'm like, oh, okay, we don't have to go there, brother. But,
Hey, Omar, let me just quickly mention in terms of Mike's friend, I want to make sure that everybody is clear, and he sort of hit it, but I just want to real quickly hit it back one more time. There were black scientists involved in the development of these vaccines. One in particular is a great young African-American woman by the name of Kismeti Corbett. She works in the lab there with Tony Fauci. She's the leader of the team that developed the Moderna vaccine. For the people that are approved the vaccines, my colleague on the Black Coalition Against COVID, the president of Meharry Medical College, a world famous virologist, was on that committee. There were several other black people who are involved in making those decisions that approved it. So I want to make sure that people are clear. Black folk have been involved in the development and approval of these vaccines from the jump.
Right. You know, one thing, and I guess it's a good time to go to Dr. Webb, go back to Dr. Webb, and that is talking about trust, Dr. Webb. You know, trust is a calculated risk. And what Mike is saying and many others have said, to include Dr. Cook, that you have to get to a place of trust. And how are we working to build trust? Because it's not asking you to trust me, it's to show you how I am trustworthy.
It's like he may have a slow connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I start by saying that transparency creates trust. I think that if you want somebody to trust you, you really have to have all your cards on the table. They have to know. Oh, sorry about that. I'm hearing a delay, so I imagine I'm a couple seconds behind y'all. But it's interesting because people have to see that you've got all your cards on the table. They have to see that you're being candid with them and upfront. And sometimes, even as I'm hearing, Mike talk about some of the things he's hearing in the shop, what I've learned over these last several months is you never come with all the answers, right? I think that anytime you've got all the answers, or you seem like you have all the answers, people think that you're just programmed and plug and play, right? You have to say, well, I don't know about that one. I'll look into that. I'll get back to you, or maybe I can connect you with this person, or maybe you can look at this space or this place. I think that building trust happens at multiple levels. So I think federal.
Look like we're losing your connection, Dr. Webb. So let's look like you're back now. Can you say something now? We know you're here.
I'm back. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know how much of that speech that you just caught.
We heard all of it.
Going
so
I promise.
Go from there. We heard it. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and so I think that's really where I would land. I think it's just making sure that you're being straight up with people. But also I wanted to really quickly say, Mike, to your point about the Native American community, what's amazing is that they have one of the highest rates of vaccination. And in fact, it was driven by the elders in that community saying, we're going to preserve and save our culture. And it's very much so a culture that's passed down from the elders. The elders said, y'all better get vaccinated to protect us. Don't be messing around with this virus. And I think what happened then is that you had the whole population vaccinated in Navajo Nation. They had a day back in March with 0 cases of coronavirus. And this is Navajo Nation. It covers 4 different states. This is a huge number of people in places. Tremendous improvement. And again, so don't let people tell you that it's this way or it's got to be that way. I think that when you bring together all this different information, I think that's when you make an impact. And so it's not to argue with people. It's just the way that you do in the shop. And one last thing I'll say about barbershops that's so amazing is that shop talk creates that crosstalk where you don't have to go debate with somebody one-on-one. And I can't tell you, every time I go in the shop, I just open it up to the room and I'm just like, what y'all think, right? And we just let the shop take it, and you'll get the range of perspectives, right? You'll get the fact that there are people who are for it and against it. They've got family members who are for it and against it, and the shop will handle it. Just like it does with, the LeBron versus Michael Jordan, who's the GOAT conversation. It's insane.
You're absolutely right. We have to reach people where they are. And, even as we look at cultural sensitive messaging, and I think it would be good to bring up one of those clips to show how we can use different ways and different formats to reach people. Let's bring up a clip and show the people how we are now using hip hop to reach the masses.
And, as Ellis is bringing that up, one of the things that is so important that the shops also have TVs and other things in their space that can be utilized as channels actually to deliver some of what you're about to see, to actually culturally tailor our messages. And trust is so important that I say, why aren't we spending time where people already have trust? And that's why the barbershops and salons are so important. When you think about how much time you spend, Katrina, with people, they may go to a doctor to get their physical once a year, but how often are they in your chair, Katrina, as Ellis brings up the hip hop video? You're muted, my sister. Unmute yourself. There you go.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I see most of my client base at least once a week. So about every 7 days, most of my clients are sitting in my chair. So it's like a family environment. We're more like family than just stylist and client.
So that gives time for a conversation to take place over time, not just one time and done.
You know, I always was curious how a permanent is temporary. Let's go to the.
You know, Ellis is back there working on the technology.
He has it ready now.
All right, go ahead, Ellis.
Go ahead.
I got the vaccine. You got the vaccine. They got the vaccine. We got the vaccine. We can get back to normal. Let me inform you. Let's all get the vaccine. It's about community immunity. I'm talking unity for you and me. If Doc says it's good, then trust me, it's good. Now let's all get the vaccine. Alright. Trust me, believe me, we're not gonna have another Tuskegee. This ain't eugenics. No way. Nobody getting away with hiding information today. Got the FDA, CDC, black doctors and experts for you and me. There's a whole lot of data for the world is free. Do me a favor, check it out and you'll see. I gotta give a shout out to all of those involved that's helping us get this problem solved. People wanna know, is the vaccine safe? It doesn't have anything to do with race. 9 out of 10 people won't get sick. That's 90% effective and legit. We gotta act now. Please don't wait. Get the vaccine before it's too late. For real.
You know, I absolutely love that video. You know, let me say something, because this is another forum. Obviously, we've said it before, but I think it's critically important to note that Tuskegee comes up a lot as it relates to COVID-19 hesitancy. Now, let me say that I was the former mayor of Tuskegee, Alabama. So I can speak with confidence and unequivocally about the study that was done in Tuskegee by the United States Public Health Service. It was not the same as COVID-19. Yes, the men were in a 40-year study for syphilis, but the difference between COVID-19 and this vaccine is that when penicillin was created, they did not provide penicillin for the men. Right now, we're talking about providing the vaccine for the people, so it's different. In fact, you're not taking the vaccine, it's you're doing what the federal government did to the people. You're doing it to yourself. You see, and I think it's important to put that into context. And let me say this: people in Tuskegee are getting the vaccine at great rates. We had, I think it was 12,000 people that was eligible. We had over 9,000, close to 10,000 people who've gotten it already. So, you know, I think that it's important for you to know that we're in Tuskegee, we're getting our shots, our vaccines, right? And so if you're using Tuskegee to not get it, then you're not on the same page with us.
Hey, Omar, let me just tell you, we just sent a film crew down to film the descendants of the people in that study. And the one thing that they really, really have emphasized, please get vaccinated. They're vaccinated, as you said. And what they don't like, and they really do not appreciate, is having their family members who suffered to be used as an excuse to do harm to Black people. So they're very clear.
Absolutely. In fact, my uncle was one of the people in the study, right? I don't like to call it participant because that implies informed consent. But he was one of the people that were in the study. And so I have a personal relationship with that study in that way. Let's do this. We want to get some questions from people who are out in the space. If you have some questions that you want to bring to the table of something we hadn't talked about, but this is the kind of conversation that we have in the barbershops and in the salons. Real conversations, not scripted, people talking to each other. That's so critically important, that we're not trying to sell you anything. We're trying to save all of our lives, right?
And you know, Omar, the young man in the chair who said, I'm going to trust my own immune system. doctors on the screen, we can meet him there too. Because I've talked to people like that. They say, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to eat better. I've been talking to you about that for the past 3 years. You haven't done any of those things. So this is the teachable moment.
Right.
So let's make sure as we raise awareness around COVID protection and vaccinations, we also bring that health promotion message, that risk reduction, because nobody wants to go back to the past when Black folk lived sicker and died younger. We don't want to go back there. So how can COVID and what lessons do we take forward to ensure that we have a new way forward in our community?
Dr. Thomas, I'm so very glad that you brought that up. That is key. Taking care of our health from a global perspective. That is absolutely key with regards to COVID-19 infection, where we know that the studies have shown that people who are higher risk with multiple medical problems or comorbidities, as we call them, of obesity, which we know we have the highest rates in the US, the Black and Latinx communities, hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, all things that are rampant in our communities, with inadequate access to healthy foods, with some of the social and political determinants of health. These things negatively affect our health all around. And so it increases our risk for having a very poor outcome if we get COVID-19. And I say that to say we definitely want to maintain our health. We definitely want to lose weight to decrease our chance of getting type 2 diabetes, because usually we have a family history of it. We want to, make sure our cholesterol is well controlled. We want to eat healthy foods, a plant-based diet, so that, we are healthy. Because of course, healthy people do well when they get diseases. You want to make sure your immune system is good. But those things do not negate getting the COVID-19 vaccine. I've had people tell me the same thing. If I'm healthy, then I won't get it. Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Yes,
They
you will.
take you out.
And so you need to, you need to get the vaccine. You need to get the vaccine because, just because when you break your leg, you don't say, well, I'm healthy, so that bone is just going to knit together and I'm just going to be just fine. No, you go to orthopedic surgeon, you have them set it, you wear your cast, your crutches, and then lo and behold, you're walking again and you're fine. If something's wrong with your car, you don't say, well, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I have gas in there and it'll be fine. There are multiple ways that we attack problems. And so good car service throughout the life of the car. But if there's a problem, taking it to the mechanic, those are the things that we do. We have to come at it at a multidisciplinary way. And the same thing is in order for managing and eradicating COVID-19.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Webb, when we find that people have people in their families or people who are close to them who either die or contract COVID-19 and have adverse effects by it, do we find those people are more receptive to getting the vaccine than others?
I think sometimes there's no way to completely generalize that, but I think having real personal experience with the virus really does move people to wanting to prevent it at all costs. And so in my clinical work, I work in the hospital every other weekend, even now while I'm working in the White House, and I work on the coronavirus unit at our hospital. And what I've seen in the last year and some change is it went from first being almost exclusively Black and brown people to then being almost exclusively older people to now being almost exclusively Black and brown people who are younger, right? And I think that what we're seeing is it's directly correlated to who's getting vaccinated. 85% of seniors are vaccinated, right? 73% of people over the age of 40 are vaccinated. So who I'm seeing are younger people of color. And the thing about it is people say, oh, I'm young, I'm healthy, what's COVID gonna do to me? I've seen completely healthy 25-year-olds who end up on what we say 15 liters of oxygen. I'm sending them to the ICU because they are as sick can be, right? And then beyond the acute illness, people have ongoing symptoms from COVID for months. Almost a third of people have lingering symptoms 9 months later. So this is no joke. This is no game. Even high-performing athletes, there's evidence of impact on their myocardium or their heart muscle, right? In studies that have been done months later. You don't want those problems. And so what I always tell people is it's so important to make sure that you're protecting yourself from this virus because it is the threat to you and your health. And what we know about the vaccines is it does protect you from this virus. And so I do think that experience, whether it's, you know, being in clinical spaces or whether it's seeing family members really impacted. We got Father's Day coming up in a couple of weeks, and there are a lot of people who don't have fathers to celebrate that day with because of this pandemic.
So you
Right?
know,
And I can't stress that enough. And so for so many people, the folks who've lost a loved one, a grandparent, a parent, they're going to be the ones telling you, please go get vaccinated. Tell your
All right, look like we lost Dr. Webb again. He's going to come back, I'm sure.
Yeah. So Omar,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Omar. I just want to say that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we got a bit of a delay. You know, we've had some missteps along the way with language, comparing it to flu. So people say, oh, I get the flu. This is not the flu. The doctors will tell you what Dr. Webb just described. That's not side effects of flu. This is a different entity. So it's not the flu. You don't want to get it if you can help it. But also this Alabama versus Tuskegee. You said Tuskegee, they're getting vaccinated. That would be a real remarkable role model for the rest of us.
Right.
But Alabama is one of those states that is that is being listed as a hotspot, as a state. So hyper local matters. Getting us down to the barbershop in the hyper local neighborhoods really matters, and that's what Mike and Katrina and the barbers do for us.
Right. And also, and Dr. Tuckson, I want you to help me out here. In Alabama, we politicize this, and that's why we're having so much difficulty in getting uptake. Is that some people are saying that if I'm a Republican, then I can't take it, or because if you, or even wearing a mask, something as simple as that was political associations. And people didn't do it because of that. How do you get past that when people are so hyper-partisan?
Well, I think first thing we tell them is that the virus doesn't know nothing about politics. So let's just start there. I mean,
that's a good way to say it.
Going, well, let's see, this is a Trump Republican, so I'm not going to bother you. Or, you know, I'm a Christian fundamentalist, so I ain't going to bother you. The virus don't know nothing about that. So let's just remember that. Number two, the death counts are all across the board for everybody. And so, but I think the other thing, though, on a very serious note, you know, Trump did so much damage to this country, and he continues to do it. I have made it a personal commitment of my own, is never to let Donald Trump affect the course of my life or anybody I care or love. So if you are somebody who is concerned about the response to the science around COVID, if you're thinking about those issues through the prism of Trump, and you're going to deliberately, just like you said, Omar, about the Tuskegee experience, where we were denied access to the very drug that would have saved our lives. So because I'm mad at Tuskegee, I'm going to deny myself the drug in my life. It's the same thing with Trump. It's like, I think that Trump politicized this whole thing and made it a negative. So therefore, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot just because of Trump. It doesn't make sense. Now, I will say this finally. I really do understand distrust. My father had the talk with me. I had the talk with my son. I had the talk with my grandson. I have been pulled over more than once. I have gone through, I've in my own personal life with my family, I have lost children or a child to gunshot and violence in the streets. I have lived the life of being a Black man in America. I get it. So what we have to begin now to understand, and Cam Webb started to get to this earlier in his conversation, is that at some point you have to get past that. You have to get past the place where we do our own selves in, and you decide, I'm going to control my life to save my family and my community. And what Trump says or does doesn't matter to me. What happened in 1930 or 40, they're important, but they do not control my life today.
Wow, that's important. We got some people who have some questions, and particularly for the for the stylists and the barbers, Katrina and Mike. Put it up, Alice, and so we can see what they're saying out there.
And if I could set this one up, the question was, is it safe to go to the barbershop? These businesses have been devastated by this pandemic. And let me say that you can't do what they do 6 feet away. So part of our effort is to help ensure that they are safe places, training the barbers, making sure they have protective equipment, and providing the barbers with weekly COVID saliva tests to make sure that they're safe. We're doing that right now. We like to be able to spread that across the country so that people know they can go to their shops and that it is safe. So ask the right questions. If they're doing what they need to do, going to the barbershop is a safe thing to do. And people are going to do it anyway. So let's do it and be safe.
Right.
Mike,
Okay.
Katrina, you fill your shops. Mike, I see Mike up there. You ready for people to come and give them the assurance that they're going to be okay?
No question. Absolutely. 100%.
Katrina?
What about you, Katrina?
Absolutely. When you walk through my doors, I have a big sign on the door where you can see CDC guidelines that you have to abide in once you enter.
There you go.
Yes.
So we still can do it. We have another question as well that came up. Let's see if we can get that to both Mike and Katrina.
Ellis, go ahead. Put it up, brother.
All right. What about it went out for me a second. We're going to put it up because what we want to do is we want to have things. Are you planning to discuss the lab leak investigation? We talked about, we hadn't talked about that, but this, as many times as we have new issues come up, that creates more skepticism and cynicism. And I think it's important that we keep focused on where we are and what we can do and not get distracted by all of the other things that's happening now. Am I wrong for saying that? I want to go to you, Dr. Webb. Am I wrong for saying that?
No, I understand why you say something like that. And I guess the place that I would start is I would say, listen, it's so important for me to make sure that my eyes are open. I see what's happening around me, and I'm not gonna ignore some things that may be concerning to me. But in this moment, I want to make sure that I'm around a couple of weeks from now. I want to make sure my loved ones are around a couple of weeks from now. So lab leak or no lab leak, I need to get vaccinated. My family needs to get vaccinated. My community needs to get vaccinated. And then we'll be around for the conclusion of that investigation. And we'll know what happened. But I think in the meantime, again, you don't want to conflate those two things.
And Reed, you remember back in the days of the HIV, the same kind of things. Where did it come from? And we said, regardless of where it came from, Black folk, we got to save ourselves. And that's the moment we're in right now.
It's funny, Stephen.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just saying.
No, go ahead, Reed.
Sometimes we get so caught up in the conspiracy theory and we get distracted and don't take care of business. So yeah, back in the days, it was like, where did the HIV come from? And la da da da. But you said, well, brother, what's that got to do with you wearing a condom tonight? Protect your woman. So I mean, let's just be real. If you care about Black women, you up here worrying about a conspiracy theory and using it as an excuse to endanger the lives of our sisters. It doesn't make any sense, brother. Don't do that.
Right.
Real
talk.
Example.
A perfect example. Okay. What's the difference between Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson vaccine? Help me out with that.
Okay, real quick. Come on, docs.
Our docs.
Oh, I'll take it. So the difference, Pfizer, of course, was the first one that received emergency use authorization. I've seen some comments on that in the chat. So just really quickly, what I'll say is that emergency use authorization still required a significant amount of review by the Food and Drug Administration. So there were no shortcuts taken. A tremendous number of people were evaluated for the safety and the efficacy of that vaccine before I went through that process. But that was the first one. It's a 2-shot vaccine. And so the first dose is on day 1. 3 weeks later, you get the second dose. And then 2 weeks after that, so a total of 5 weeks, 2 weeks after that, you have full immunity that's conferred by the vaccine. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a single dose, so it works a little differently. It's actually a different vehicle. So the Pfizer vaccine is a messenger RNA vaccine. It's a different technology. technology, whereas the Johnson & Johnson vaccine uses a little bit older technology. It's an adenovirus viral vector, so similar to the rabies vaccine, in that it's something we've used before. And so I think that that's one where people like, because it's a single dose and you're done. 2 weeks later, you've got full immunity from that. Both are life-saving vaccines. Both will keep you out of the hospital. Both will keep you, your family, and your community safe. Both have that emergency use authorization from the FDA. And I think that, always shooting people straight, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, of course, is the one that we had the pause on a couple of months back, and that was because of the
I don't know if that's Dr. Webb's freezing again. Dr. Cook, can you help him out with where he was on that?
Sure. So there was a hold on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because of the few reported cases. They started with 6 and they went to 12 of blood clot formation. And these aren't the blood clots that, your aunt had or your uncle had in the deep veins of the legs that can cause swelling and a PE. These are clots in a different region, in a different vein. And so those were on hold. The vaccine was on hold, but, we had to understand that out of the more than 8 million people that got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, these 12 to 20 people that got the clot, it wasn't statistically significant. So it's still safer to get that Johnson & Johnson vaccine than it is to not get it. And in fact, there's a higher rate of getting blood clots with taking birth control pills than there is with getting this vaccine. Mm-hmm. But people still take birth control pills. And so it's important to kind of put those two things in the same bucket so people understand the risk. So, so Pfizer, Moderna, mRNA vaccines, Johnson & Johnson, adenovirus, and then you have AstraZeneca, et cetera. And so the ones that we use most commonly in the United States are the Pfizer, which is a 2-shot, the Moderna, which is a 2-shot, and the Johnson & Johnson, which is a 1-shot. And they all confer excellent immunity against COVID-19. You have,
Yeah, I was just going to say, Omar, can you believe how fast this evening has gone, brother? It has gone fast. And,
wow.
And we used the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in our barbershop vaccination clinic, and it was not easy. We had to deal with some real issues, but 30 plus people got that vaccine who otherwise would not have. So we need to do more of this. And Reed, I'm going to say we need to have another session like this. We need to have a class. Now people want to know about the details of these vaccines. We need a workshop that will train them in all the questions they have. Yeah. So Omar, can you believe we're at the last 15 minutes?
Well, one of the things I want to do, if you allow me to ask Dr. Tuckson this, and where are we in terms of the people who want the vaccine in terms of availability? Are we in a good space there?
Yeah, thankfully we are. And that for the first parts of the pandemic, Omar, we were very pained that the Black community did not seem to be prioritized for finding easy access. And then there were a number of registration systems that we had to navigate. And as we well know, so many of Black families are living in communities with really crappy internet connectivity. We also know that too many Black folks didn't have access to the computers that they needed to be able to register. And then we weren't as savvy as some of the other folk in the country at how to play the registration game. So for all of those reasons, we were having a hard time getting access. Now, the reality is we have more access than we have demand. And that's really a problem. And it really makes me sad, Omar, to say that when you look at India every day in the news, or Brazil, right, and you see all those people dying at such, funeral pyres that just have now had a black cloud over the entire country, and they just don't have any vaccine. And we have more vaccine than we right now are using. That's a very sad thing. So anybody, and the last thing I'll say is this, that we worked very hard at the Black Coalition Against COVID, and also with our faith-based leaders like Choose Healthy Life and Values Partnership, all these faith-based organizations. We've sat with the CDC and worked hard to make sure that community-based organizations and faith-based organizations were going to have the money to build an infrastructure to do vaccination in their own community. And so that now is done. So I would say to you, Omar, the simple, straightforward answer is there is no access problem. What there is now is we need to get those who have not vaccinated, get you to get that done. It's easy to do, and there's really no excuse.
Wow. Well, that's good. That's music to my ears, Reed. Because let me say this: the problem that we have at this juncture, given what I'm hearing from you, is not the vaccine availability, but hesitancy and maybe some accessibility still for more rural areas that are not connected well in terms of having hospitals in close proximity. Dr. Webb, is that the case too?
Yeah, and I switched computers. My connection should be much better. So hopefully,
very good.
Hopefully this all works well. But yeah, that's what we're hearing, and we fought hard to make sure that we got access where it needs to go. And now it's a matter of making sure we get real access. And one thing I'll clarify is that just because there's a vaccine in your county or in your city doesn't mean it's accessible to you, right? Accessible means that you have paid time off from work to go get vaccinated. Accessible means you've got childcare to drop off your kids so that you can go get vaccinated. Accessible means that even though the president said there's a vaccine within 5 miles of more than 90% of Americans, you know that if you don't have a car, 5 miles is a long way. So accessible means Uber and Lyft are giving you a free ride, or public transportation is holding you down and getting you to the vaccination center. That's what we mean by real access, right? And so we have to make sure that in addition to notional access, you got vaccine in your county, you've got real access. And then we talk about making sure that it's in trusted spaces, and that's where we are now. So yeah, we got to fight that hesitancy fight. We'll continue to do so. There are going to be some percentage of folks who are never going to want to get vaccinated, but there are still a lot of people, particularly in communities of color, who actually are willing to get vaccinated, or at least continue to have that conversation. We've got to make it accessible for them so that the minute they get to yes, the minute they say, yeah, I'll do it, they've got a place to go to get vaccinated.
But Omar, one more thing on that point, which is key. And Cameron is absolutely right about the fact that, if it's 5 miles and you don't have a car, but you know what you have? You have a community. You have people in your family. You got church. You got people in the barbershop. Say to the person in the salon, in the barbershop, hey, look, I want to get vaccinated, but I don't have a car. So somebody will drive you where you got to go. We are a loving people. Ain't that right, Mike? We are loving people, brother. We take care of each other, don't we?
No question.
Ask Katrina how many people she brought to the vaccination clinic, Reed.
Katrina, how many people did you bring?
I think I picked up about 4 from different sides of the beltway. So it took me early morning to get there by noon.
See? I think, Omar, the thing that we've learned, no people but a people can save a people. You understand what I'm saying, Omar?
Absolutely.
No people but a people can save a people. So we can't be waiting for the man to come in on a white horse, save us. We got to save ourselves, brother.
Here we go.
Man,
like on the Underground Railroad.
Absolutely it. Let me do this. I don't know what our time is like, but I do know that Dr. T is winding me down, because he know when I get wound up, it's just hard to wind me down. I'm looking like I'm stuck too. Let's go to you, Mike, as we go to our the last thing that we want to say. What do you want to leave with the people? You have to realize that we're at a critical point. And your words will resonate with people. So what should those words be at this moment?
Do your research, people. Challenge yourself to take a position to want to change. With the vaccine, we can make a change. Without the vaccine, things remain the same. We're trying to come out of a pandemic. if you choose to stay on the fence and don't come off of it to get vaccinated, then you're a part of the problem. I like to say, let's focus, let's identify the problem, but let's put our energy into the solution. The solution is to get vaccinated so we can get back to normalcy. So when I see you, I haven't seen you in a while, I can dap you up with a dap and a hug, not just a fist bump. Hey, how you doing? It's more personal to me. It's more personable when you can touch and hug somebody rather than I don't want to touch you because you haven't been vaccinated, or you make me feel that type of vibe. Somebody can have OCD and just take it to the 10th level, just don't come out the house. And it's all because we won't take a position to get vaccinated. And I understand your distrust with the government or whatever, what have you. It's a new day now. Let's turn the page, because if you take the mindset to stay there, we can never turn the page. We'll be stuck on that same page, trying to get past it, focusing the energy on the problem rather than the solution. So let's deal in the solution and make America safe again.
All right. Thanks so much, Mike. Katrina, what's your takeaway? What do you want people to hear from you in this moment?
I tell my clients, family, and friends all the time, read, do your research, get your factual information from the healthcare system, CDC, so that we can get back to some type of normalcy. And always remember, protect yourself so that you can protect others, because that's what it's all about, getting back to some type of normalcy.
Okay, let's go to Dr. Tuesday Cook. What's your takeaway this evening?
Well, my takeaway, I'll try to make it brief, but my takeaway really is consider vaccination after you speak to someone you trust, and get as much information as you can, and consider it just one tool in your armamentarium of ways to get healthy. Weight loss, control of your diabetes, control of your hypertension, high cholesterol, following up with your a doctor that you trust. All those things will keep you healthy, but just consider vaccination one of the things that you will do, just like your mom did for you when she got you your chicken pox and your measles and your rubella and your tetanus shots. This you have to do for yourself. Your mom can't do for you, but just consider it one thing to do in addition to all the other things we need to do to keep our communities healthy and living with a better life expectancy than we have now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dr. Cameron Webb, what's your takeaway? You know, you got an opportunity to give your pitch to the people, man. And let me also say this. We're proud of you. We are absolutely proud of you, man. to have a brother right there in the White House, right?
In the room where it happened.
With your consciousness, right? Right? Not just any brother, you, right? We want you to know how much we love and appreciate you, man. All right. So go ahead and talk to your people.
Well, I appreciate that so much. And what I'll say is, it's pretty internal medicine, doctor. Listen, I convinced 50-year-olds to get a colonoscopy. I convinced folks to take insulin when they thought insulin has done harm to their grandma or their auntie. I convinced folks to take blood pressure medicines and bring back a notepad with their blood pressure every single day, 7 days at a time. So listen, I'm not going to get tired of trying to convince folks to do what's in their best interest with regard to their health. But what I'm taking away from this conversation is that me as a doctor and Dr. Cook, we're not in this alone at all. I'm looking at Mike Brown, I'm looking at Katrina, and I'm just like, we've got all we need to get through this and to get through this together. As Dr. Tuckson said, we got us, right, in so many ways. And so what we really need to realize is that we've got all of these nodes in our communities, all of these leaders, all of these individuals. And when we lift our collective voices, as with anything in the history of our people in this nation, we can move mountains, we can move people, and we can move this vaccine or this virus out of our way and into our history, right? It's so important that we lean into these next couple of weeks to make sure that we don't get left behind or forgotten. And so again, I'm not here to sell anybody a vaccine. I get 0% of the proceeds from Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson. But what I do get is a sense of satisfaction knowing that my people won't be dying come this fall. And that's what this vaccination effort is all about. So do your research, make a decision that's in your best interest and the best interest of your family and your community. And we can do this together.
Yes.
Well, Dr. T, I'm going to take it to you as I bring it home for us, and then we're going to go to Dr. Reed Tuckson to take us completely home.
Well, let me just say, I feel blessed. Think about it. All this technology we're doing right now existed before the pandemic, but the pandemic forced us into the deep end of the pool, and now we're using it. Let's harness this technology to bring our communities together. So I want to just so thankful of Mike and Katrina and Fred's cutting hair, so he couldn't be here with us today. But all the barbers and stylists that are listening, we're coming to you. And to my friends in the government, I just simply will say this. We're at a moment of danger and opportunity. We're hearing this word endemic. Once the community spread is gone, it will be endemic. It will be in little communities. It will be living in local areas. So the danger is to assume that it's Black folks' fault if they continue to suffer from this disease, because you can walk to a CVS or you can get it anywhere and it's free. We want to be careful. The opportunity is to recognize all those social determinants of health that Dr. Webb talked about, all the other challenges that we face in this country, and to meet this moment, like a catastrophe, and to fund it accordingly. That is our way out of this to a better place. And who could have imagined that a new home for healthcare would be a barbershop story?
Wow.
And salon. Don't want to forget Katrina. A barbershop and salon story.
Yeah.
Right. Wonderful. Let me say this. Let me thank each of you for such a wonderful exchange this evening. We have truly dealt with many challenges that we have in our community, but I'm still hopeful. I leave you with a story of a little boy that was obsessed with a movie. The movie was entitled The Wizard of Oz. And every year, The Wizard of Oz would come on and he would be so enamored with that movie. He would wait with bated breath for the movie to come. And that little boy grew up and always kept that movie at the forefront of his mind, never really understanding how powerful the message was of that movie. Well, if you would go to the movie, you would notice a little girl named Dorothy that was swept up in a storm and landed in a foreign space, and they told her that she needed to go see this dude called the Wizard in order to get back home. And so they told her she had to follow this yellow brick road. And so what happened is, as she was going down this yellow brick road, she met three characters, one being the Scarecrow who needed a brain, the Tin Man who needed a heart, and the Lion who needed courage. And what I'm going to say to you today is this, is that those three things that those characters sought are the same things that this nation needs to get out of this pandemic mess. One is we need knowledge. We need to make sure that our people are getting the right information, not only get the information, but get understanding. Because once you get understanding, then you can make informed decisions. Yes. And then we need a heart. We need to love each other unconditionally, even when people are hesitant. Don't get mad at them for their righteous hesitancy, because they have a reason to not trust this system. You have to look beyond faults and find their needs. And then we need courage. Courage don't mean that you're unafraid. Courage means that you act appropriately in the face of fear. And so we need courage. Now, let me mix this metaphor to bring it home. I'm going to take us to baseball, and I'm going to say that in this country, we are at the third base. And this is the ninth inning, and we need just one more run to win the game. And I'm going to suggest that the people who not yet had the vaccine, that you are the one that's coming to the plate.
Come on.
And that right now, in order to hit this home run that we need in order to win this game, you got to roll up your sleeve.
There you go.
And you got to be willing to swing as hard as you can. And once you do that, I'm convinced that we will go home. And once we get home, that's like Dorothy said, there ain't no place like home. Now, if you were wondering who that little boy was, that little boy was me.
Okay.
Right. And I leave you with this. We can do this.
Yes.
We can do this.
Yes,
if
we can
do it together. As always, I'd like to leave you with these two words. Remember that I love you with a perfect love. But more importantly, remember this. You got the power. Back to you, Reed.
You got the
thank
power,
you very
Reed.
much, Omar and Stephen, and to all of our guests. I mentioned that we had a special announcement, but I want to make one quick comment in terms of what I'm taking away from this. And I'm listening to my two physician colleagues, and Dr. Cook talked about life expectancy and Dr. Webb talked about history. I'm a physician who understands that our struggle in this country since the day we arrived on these shores has been a struggle for survival. We have been fighting for our lives and our families' lives ever since we were here, generation after generation after generation. It has always pained me as a physician that the discrepancy between our health and that of the rest of America has been so terrible. Our life expectancy is so much lower than that of others. I just read the data the other day, and it is painful to say out loud to all of you that with 600,000 people dying in this country, for white America, that is trimmed 8 months of lost life expectancy for them. For Black folk, almost 3 years of life expectancy is being lost because of this pandemic. And I just fear so greatly that as our society opens up and we are letting people walk around now without masks in all of these different environments, you have no idea who you are sitting beside, who is coughing or breathing on you, and they're not wearing masks, and you are being exposed not only to the traditional virus, but to the mutations as well. So I am urging you strongly to really, really be careful. And the only way that you can get out of this and save your life, ultimately, for sure, is to get vaccinated. Well, we announced that we had an announcement. We are announcing today the Shots at the Shop initiative, an initiative that will encourage and engage Black-owned barbershops and beauty salons across the country to support local vaccine education and outreach efforts. Let me be very clear. We are not asking folks from in the salon and barbershop industry to push vaccination, but to be able to provide access to trusted information so that people can make their own best personal decisions. The Shea Moisture Company, to their great credit, have created a $1 million fund. And that $1 million fund by the Shea Moisture Company will recruit 1,000 beauty salons and barbershops across the nation to participate in a 4-hour online COVID-19 rapid response training program designed for barbers and stylists to become community health workers. That training will be done by Dr. Stephen Thomas and his team at the University of Maryland Center for Health Equity. The money will be used to provide $1,000 grants to each of the 1,000 businesses that register and are chosen for this training. Let me say it again. If you are a barber or stylist shop, you will have the opportunity to submit your request to participate in this 4-hour online rapid response training program. And if you do, you will be receiving a $1,000 grant, which will add up to 1,000 businesses for $1 million in generous contribution by Shea Moisture. Interested barber and stylist owners who choose to enroll in this session simply need to go to SheaMoistureFund.com. Let's put that along the bottom of the scroll. SheaMoisture Fund, FUND.com. SheaMoistureFund.com. Upon business confirmation and selection, you will be provided a course coupon which will allow you to register and receive more information on how you will be able to participate in the training and how you will receive your stipend. So thank you very much to Shea Moisture and to the University of Maryland Center for Health Equity. Well, to bring our show to closure, I want to thank our sponsors again for this evening's conversation. To all the members of the Black Coalition Against COVID, the Made to Save initiative from Health and Human Services, along with the We Can Do This campaign that they operate, the University of Maryland Center for Health Equity, Shea Moisture, and our good friends, and thank them so much at Barbershop, who are very vital to keep spreading the word about this conversation and the training programs to come. Thank you all for joining us. Stay safe, stay calm, stay beautiful, and above all, stay in love with each other as we fight for each other's life. Have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
COVID's put life on pause for so long. I'm all about protecting what's mine. So when my doctor says COVID-19 vaccines are safe, effective, and taken by millions, I can trust that. And now that everyone 12 and older is eligible, I'm talking to friends, family, everybody about the real facts and how they can get vaccinated. Life is waiting. Let's press play and get on with living again. We can do this.